I bow to you and invite Buddha nature to come to the forefront of your awareness. I think it was Rumi that said something like, I went in search of joy, and when I found it, I acted in service to others to share that joy, and then I discovered that service is joy. That's not the exact quote, I completely butchered it, but you get the idea. I understand this because I was just born with this compulsion to share. Anytime I discovered a new place or anything that brought me happiness, I had to share it with somebody. It was just part of my makeup. So I've always done that, where I run around and share things. And for a long time, I just did it through writing. And then I met Rama, and he taught me how to still my mind and opened up this amazing world of meditation and Buddhism. And so, of course, I could not resist sharing it. I remember teaching my first unofficial meditation class was with my brother over the phone. Like, you got to do this thing. So we sat on the phone and meditated together. And there's so much joy in that giving. And then working with my teacher, he would have all these projects we would work on. He was very creative and very interested in technology, and always had 100 different things going on. And what we discovered is that if we worked on any of these projects with him, even if it was something really mundane, like one time we had a event where he was going to come and sit with us, and we were going to do a Thanksgiving celebration. We were in San Francisco, and we all really like to eat. So we rented a hall, and we wanted to make it extra special, so a bunch of people actually went to the hall beforehand and cleaned it, like all the way up to the rafters. We brought ladders and were dusting the rafters, and just everybody got so incredibly high from doing that service. I remember going to a gal's house and making spring rolls, and just rolling these. I had no idea what I was doing, so she was trying to show us. So I'm rolling these little very fine dough, trying not to destroy it. But just doing that simple act just unlocked this tremendous light. This service that is joy. We call it Seva, a Sanskrit word for being of service to your spiritual community. And it is one of the most powerful practices that we can do, is this offering of our time and energy in the service of light. And it's an important distinction, because I don't think it's limited to just this country. I think it goes as far back as there's ever been spiritual teachers, is there's always the potential for corruption. There's always the potential for selfishness on the part of those in power to get in the way, where people start taking advantage. And as we've come of age in this internet world where we have this instant communication, a lot of that comes to light much more quickly, and it's good. That's important. But I think it also makes people very hesitant. It creates this feeling that we have to protect ourselves. But I think there's a better way, and that is to always start with yourself. And this is one of our core teachings in Trikaya Buddhism, is the practice always starts with oneself. If we try and go out and just start giving and giving and giving, and we have not taken the time to establish ourselves in the way, then what happens is we engage in what I have termed suffering, where we take our suffering that we're experiencing and we stuff it down because we think that we are a spiritual person and therefore we should not suffer, and we just have to keep giving and giving and giving until we collapse. And then until we silently suffer, until we fall over, and then we get fed up with the whole business of it. And worst case is we completely fall off the path and we become bitter. Best case is you realize what you're doing and say, oh, wait a minute. Just like with Tonglen, I have to start with myself. So what is it that I need to feel the support that the earth is currently giving me? Because we always are supported. That's just physics. If we weren't, we'd be floating off into outer space. But instead, we have this wonderful gravity hugging us to the earth. We have this bubble of air surrounding us, providing oxygen and nutrients. And it's important to acknowledge that support and connect with it fully. And the same connection exists with our spiritual community. So we meditate, we practice mindfulness, contemplation, and we work on our individual practice until we feel that connection. And then an interesting thing happens is if we just try to stay there, we actually limit our growth. Because energy or power is always in motion. It's always moving. It's always shifting and changing. So if you just try to hoard spiritual power, you blow up. Because it won't stay still. And I've seen it happen in a lot of different ways over the years. What typically happens is that power, that energy that you start to accumulate, that you start to fill your being with, if you don't consciously direct it, it will just start to pour out of you through your habits. So whatever your habitual patterns are, those will become even more amplified. And most people don't have very healthy mental habits. They might get obsessive over their possessions. Feel like, oh, I need to accumulate more possessions. That's gonna make me feel better because I have all this energy coming through me. And so they start to build empires, and then they worry about losing their possessions, so then they have to go build a war machine. We see this reflected in the larger society. But it comes out in other ways. Like I remember one gal in the early days of Dharma Center came in, attended a retreat, just got filled up, just overflowing with light. And she didn't know what to do at that point, so she literally just sat in bed and freaked out and couldn't handle it, and so she turned back to an old habit where she was a drug user and wound up falling into that for a few weeks until someone came and helped her get clean and she had to start over. But this is just the movement of power. We think that we can hold on to it, but we can't. It's going to flow through us. It's going to do something with us if we don't do something with it. So what I recommend is, of course, taking care of yourself. Always start by loving yourself more. Put your energy into your life and your practice. Build out whatever it is that you need to feel supported. And then look at what's extra. And it's like, okay, yes, I've done, my morning exercise, I ate, I went to work, and then so I could pay my rent, I've cleaned my house, and yet I'm still buzzing. I still have all this energy. So at that point, that would be all the extra. And so then you consciously put that into something in a way that you are of service. So here we have our Sangha days, which is what we'll have this afternoon, our little short meeting, and then we do have our fun time where we get to connect with each other socially. And then during the month, the people that volunteer are active in the community will have different tasks that they'll do to keep the center running. And it's really interesting because I know when I work on the different tasks that are required to keep this place going, even if it's something that I really am not that excited about doing, like accounting, I have my little folder that builds up each month, and it's like, okay, yeah, I gotta do that. And then once I get through that initial resistance of like not wanting to do it, I will admit, but then it's like, oh wait, it's not that bad. It's just putting numbers in the computer. If I can let go of that resistance, that energy, that light starts pouring through me because it's something I'm doing in service of something greater than myself. And I know that happens with the other volunteers, like Victoria was telling me about when she did the dose of light. There's that initial resistance to getting into the email program and setting up the email to send out. But then once you start doing it, there's this rush of joy that comes. And I can tell you this, but you won't know it's true until you actually start doing it. So I highly recommend that you practice some type of service. If you're part of this community, then I hope you would be of service to this, because it's not about me. This is your center. This is your place of practice. But if it's not here, then find some way to be of service. If maybe you're having a day where you don't feel like doing much, so you're doing the scroll on social media, as we all do. We get in there and we just start scrolling through. Instead of doing it mindlessly, do it with the intent to be of service. Maybe you go by a post where you feel somebody is suffering and maybe they just need a little support, and so you add just a little comment to brighten their day. That's a very simple way that we allow this light that we are connected with to flow through us and into the world. And we start to share it in a very profound and powerful way, even though it seems like it's very, very little. Throughout all of this, you have to keep paying attention, though. There needs to be balance, because sometimes that we have a habit of not wanting to look at our own issues, not wanting to deal with our own shadows, so we just busy ourselves with things. It's like this unpleasant memory or feeling or awareness arises within us, and then so we latch on to being of service as a way to avoid. That's not pure practice. That's just avoidance. So at that moment, take some time and contemplate, what is it that I'm hiding from? What is it that I don't want to see? And acknowledge that and really look at it. So it might be, you might use your journal to contemplate, so you write about it, like, this is what I'm perceiving, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing. Not so you can judge yourself, but just so you can get it out and onto paper where you have that distance where you can see it. Some people, they have difficulty writing for whatever reason. So maybe you just write on a card what you think the crux of the issue is. And you set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. And you put the card in front of you and you keep your mind focused on that issue. And you allow yourself to contemplate it and dig through all the different layers until you can see it clearly. Because there's magic when we add our attention and our awareness to anything. When it's an illusion, something that is creating that sense of separation from our inherent support, we see through the curtain, like in the end of The Wizard of Oz. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. Where they go and they find the man behind the curtain. And it's like, oh, that's how all this is happening. And you recognize the workings of your own mind of like, oh, that's what's going on. That's what's making me feel so heavy and upset and out of balance, is because I'm holding this idea that's incorrect. And once you see it, it dissolves. And then that opens up the way for this energy to pour through us. And at that point is when we can turn back to our service and say, okay, now that I've got my connection is clear and I've got this energy pouring through me, how can I be of service? And then we actively seek ways to do that. And it keeps us moving ever higher or ever deeper into these planes of light. And it allows us to share more and more and more. It's this beautiful process that has gone on for thousands and thousands of years. But it's a conscious process. It's not something you just put on autopilot. Because if we just go and start being of service unconsciously, then that opens us up to abusive situations where we get taken advantage of. And sometimes we're not even actually being taken advantage of. We just, because we haven't dealt with our other stuff and we're taking time away from our core practice, we feel like we've been taken advantage of. So both situations happen. So it's important to be honest and look at what's actually happening. Now, obviously, if you're in an abusive situation where there's not mutual support happening, then you need to correct that situation by either confronting it or leaving it. If it's an internal issue within your own being and you want to keep growing, then confronting it within yourself is really the only choice. And of course, when we work in community on a project such as this Dharma Center, communication is key. And I think all of us understand that, we're all going through changes and we're shifting, and we're never the same from one day to the next. So there's this wonderful understanding that comes about, like, instead of having the attitude like you find in the corporate world of, well, you've always done that report, so you should always do it. If somebody's doing a volunteer task and they're like, you know what, I'm burnt out, I want something else to do, then you just speak up, and then we shift roles and we change. It's like right now, Victoria is volunteer director. She's been for quite some time. Before that, it was Hathor. In the future, it will be somebody else. So all of these different roles that we have here are not meant to be forever. It's a constantly changing and shifting thing. So if you are involved and you have been doing something for too long, then speak up and we'll shift you to something else. If you have been sitting on the periphery being like, well, maybe I want to be involved but I don't know what to do, then again, communication, speak up, and we will figure it out. But what I want you to understand from this talk is that as we grow, we get limited if we don't share, if we don't be of service. As I said, that energy builds up, and then we implode. Usually with our bad habits. Or we just stop. We reach a plateau. And then we start to meditate just to maintain that plateau. And we're no longer expanding our awareness. We just kind of hit this wall, and that becomes our new normal, and we're not free. But now we have this additional attachment to meditation, where it's like, well, now I have to meditate or else I don't feel right. But there's more to the practice than that. And it comes about when we practice Seva, when we do this selfless service. So I want to encourage you to incorporate that in some form into your practice. Now, of course, it's all possible. This is all made possible by the magic of meditation, by the magic of stopping thought. So we'll meditate again. This time we'll do a chakra meditation. So start on the navel center and just let your attention rest a little bit below your belly button. And as the thoughts come up, different sensations appear, just very gently pull your attention back to the navel center. And we'll do that for the first song. When the second song comes on, we'll rest the attention on our heart. And the same thing, it's this relaxed, alert awareness. So we're not tensing up and holding ourselves super still. We're just relaxing and opening into what's already present. And of course you'll get distracted. That's okay. It's not a fight. It's not a struggle. It's just a very gentle pulling back your attention to your focal point. And then on the last song, we'll go up to the third eye, right in between your eyebrows, a little bit above, and let your attention rest there. Just being aware of whatever arises or doesn't arise. Not trying to make anything happen. We're just being present with what is. And so let's give that a try and see where we wind up. So the space has been here for a little over 25 years now. And it's been fun to watch the different incarnations of Dharma Center. In the beginning, it was all about honoring my teacher who had just died. So it was all about the Buddha, just this magical, enlightened being, mystic, Mahasiddha, performed miracles for us. And some days, I'd come down and we'd just listen to his talks. It was all, and had way too many pictures of him. It's all very culty. Even had somebody walk in and be like, "Why do you worship this person?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? We don't worship it." And then I looked around through her eyes and I was like, "Oh." So that woke me up. I was like, "Oh, thank you for that." And then we entered the age of Dharma, where it was just about the practice. I was very, very intense then. It was like, no socializing, just practice. I don't care who you are, you're going to practice. I teach my class and be like, okay, get out, go practice. And then I softened a little bit as my practice developed, and I recognized the value of Sangha, of community. And that's the phase we've been in for a little while now. And we're headed strong into it, and the pandemic hit. So that kind of threw a wrench in some of our plans. But it was good because we have online access now for all the teachers. I had started doing it, but the other, we were using Skype, which was horrible. But the pandemic really made the other teachers step up and start offering remote classes, and that has allowed us, now we're offering classes 4 days a week because of that. Otherwise we'd be down to just 2. So this focus on Sangha has really completed the 3 jewels of the practice, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These 3 jewels that we take refuge in. And it's an exciting time. Well, it's always an exciting time. But I think it's a wonderful time to practice Seva, to find ways to be of service, because the world itself has always been a place of suffering. It's like my teacher once said, dogs have fleas and people have each other. So we're always, going through things that make each other suffer. And as our ability to interact has exploded because of the internet and our instantaneous communication, we feel it much more intensely. Ages ago, if there was a war happening, we wouldn't hear about it for months, if not years. It'd be like, oh yeah, this country is now that country. And, you hear about it from travelers and be very distant. And now it's immediate. It's like, oh, people are killing each other right now over stupid things. I think all war is stupid, so I don't care what they're actually fighting over. It's like, just stop. But we can't force anyone to do anything. But what we can do is create peace within our own being. We can be peaceful. And when we are peaceful and then we gather with other people who are peaceful, it makes a difference. It radiates out, and it is of great service to not only ourselves and our immediate community, but to the world at large. So I want to encourage you to do that. Not just on Saturdays when you come sit with me, but every day, every moment that you think about it, to be mindful. So we do our practice, our meditation in the morning, and then we practice mindfulness for the rest of the day. We'll be paying attention. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And if it's not bright, happy, high, and progressive, then we redirect our attention. Use beauty or gratitude to pull our mind out of the gutter into these higher states. And then if we keep getting stuck, over and over, then we actually take that time and contemplate. Like, what is it that I keep tripping over? And then when you are established, then we practice service in one way or another. So, very simple path. And, I thank you for being here with me, and I hope that you all continue. So, thank you.
Thank you.